Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, October 11th, and this is the SEC Morning Report on Southeastern 14. I am Blayne Gilmer. Thank you so much for tuning in here. We are getting prepared for Week 7 of SEC football action. Yes, 6 games for most all of these teams is already come and gone, and it is time to prepare for a big matchup in Rocky Top this weekend. There's also a very interesting game going on in Columbia, South Carolina, and I want to get into both of those a little bit more in depth. Chris Lee and I have done our predictions on these games that are released on the channel that you can check out after this show is over with this morning. But make sure that you like, subscribe, turn on notifications here on Southeastern 14 as we're covering SEC sports from all angles. We're going to have basketball content coming out. We know both Tennessee and Texas A&M fans are excited about their basketball team as well coming up. So Blake Lovell will have that with Chris Lee joining him on that some. I'm going to continue rolling right along with football along with the guys. And then when baseball comes around, we'll have that as well. So if you want daily SEC coverage, this is the place for you. Also, if you think that's the audience for maybe your business that could advertise on, hit up caroline.smith@southeastern14.com. And as always, you can get 15% off with the description below the CHOMPS link that we have. CHOMPS, a great protein snack, beef, venison, turkey, great flavors, and it's healthy for you as well. So make sure to check out CHOMPS. Now, without further ado, guys, let's get into this matchup between the Texas A&M Aggies coming in to Rocky Top to play the Tennessee Volunteers. Let's just talk about obvious advantages right off the bat. Okay, Tennessee's had 2 weeks to prepare for this game, and it is at home with that great environment there in Knoxville. Now, SEC home environments have been a humongous advantage this year. Don't believe me? Ask Tennessee. They went down to the swamp and ran into a buzzsaw in the Florida Gators in that running game of Trevor Etienne, Montrell Johnson, Kinsley Aguakon, the center for Florida. They just really, surprisingly had their way against Tennessee's front seven, stretching them a lot in terms of, making them go a little bit laterally, hurting gap integrity, and then gashing them for big runs. That was not something I think that everybody had on their bingo card going into that game, that Tennessee would just get run through like a car wash on a pretty summer day. I'm just telling you, it was rough in terms of the rush defense. You're facing an SEC team with that kind of physicality for the first time since that performance. And Tennessee and Texas A&M both have physical defensive lines. It's just that Tennessee's didn't respond on the road the way that they thought it would have, okay, coming into that game, because we're going to look at the numbers for both of these defensive fronts for Texas A&M and Tennessee. They're elite, guys. They're right up there in terms of numbers, of stuff rate, of havoc rate, all that kind of stuff, and we're going to go into that matchup. Guys like James Pierce causing a ton of havoc. We know what Aaron Beasley is for Tennessee. So this matchup has a lot of star power, but the obvious advantage right off the bat is that Tennessee's had 2 weeks to prepare for Texas A&M. They get them at home, and Texas A&M is coming off a physical game versus Alabama. Now, if you're Jimbo Fisher, if you are the Texas A&M Aggies, you are obviously not where you wanted to be. A disappointing loss to Miami, okay, and a disappointing loss to Alabama. And there's really only one reason for it. It is just absolute terrible secondary play, allowing way too many big plays on the back end. And then, I can hear Tennessee fans right now already starting to drool a little bit. If you're here, bad secondary, you think Joe Milton's just going to keep launching this ball down the field on Saturday and give Texas A&M problems, and he may do that. And we're gonna get into the specifics of it. But the one thing I will say, if you're Jimbo Fisher, actually two things about Jimbo Fisher that have to change if they want to have any chance of coming into a very hostile environment and getting an SEC road victory. He cannot coach scared like he did against Alabama. I don't know what it was. Maybe he had too much trust in his defense based on how they were getting after Milroe in the first half, and they were sacking him at a high rate. Had 4 sacks in the first half, things of that nature. But there were a couple of times where it's 4th and 1 in Alabama territory. It's 4th and 5 in a situation where you need to go down and get 7 instead of 3, and you settle for a field goal. He was playing very, very conservatively, way too conservative at times. And when you're inside of Tennessee's territory and you have opportunities to go down and either extend drives and keep Joe Milton and that Tennessee offense off the field at home, or to go up and get 7s instead of 3, do it. I mean, if you trust your defense as much as it appeared that you did, and you were like, well, we're just going to limit the scoring opportunities. We're going to take the easy points and trust our defense to hold them. I just don't think on the back end your secondary has proven, and now particularly going on the road, I don't see how communication, lack of bust, things of that will be much better. But we need to see what's going to happen there in that situation with Texas A&M. And see how they respond. You can't let Alabama beat you twice. You can't let that performance from Jermaine Burton stick in the head of those DBs. They've got to remember their failures, but they also have to flush it. You have to have a short memory if you're a DB, because you're going to be left on an island a lot. You're going to be left in one-on-one matchups a lot, and certainly Tennessee has the weapons to hurt you deep if you are not playing up to the best of your ability, not playing in the right technique for your scheme, things like that. And you have to be focused in order to do that. And that's what Tennessee wants to do, is take you out of the right mindset with all that momentum they're going to have there in Neyland. So without further ado, let's get into the stats here of both these defenses, guys. These are 2 defenses that have created a ton of havoc this year. Anytime your havoc rate is north of 20%, and havoc rate meaning, okay, any kind of tackle for a loss, a sack, tip balls, interceptions, forced fumbles, these are 2 of the best at it when it comes to it. Texas A&M number 1 in the country overall ranking wise, and Tennessee 5th in the country in terms of havoc created. Now, conversely, when you talk about these offensive lines that each other are going to be going against, the Aggies allow havoc. They're not that great in terms of havoc allowed. They are 60th in the country, and I do allow a lot of pressure. But the Vols only allow, they're 4th in the country. So their offensive line has held up much better, and they do have Cooper Mays back now, who's had the benefit of the bye week and to be healthy. But that is going to be a tremendous matchup inside between Walter Nolan, Cooper Mays. You got guys like Shamar Turner out there on the edge, and Fadil Diggs. I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see, like I said, James Pierce, who's really come on in terms of pressuring the quarterback, stuff like that. I love he'll try to be getting after Max Johnson the entire day with that Neyland crowd going crazy. You see right here, points per possession, okay? Points per opportunity. An opportunity, guys, is when you get inside of an opponent's 40-yard line, or when they get inside your 40-yard line. How does your defense do in terms of coming out of that opportunity for them points-wise? A&M and Tennessee both holding people under a field goal when it comes to points per opportunity. So they're doing a good job of limiting scoring chances. Now, what you're going to have to do if you're Texas A&M is prevent the big play before that. Joe Milton, there's not a throw on the field he cannot make. And I don't care if it's Josh DeBerry or Deuce Harmon or whoever it is at the corner. Both of them got opportunities to play and couldn't stop Jermaine Burton in that game against Alabama. Double moves, hurting them, all of those kind of things. Do not think that Josh Heupel's not going to watch that film and say, hey, we've got to attack this and this down the field. We got to be able to go and take advantage of how they mess up this type of coverage, things of that nature. DJ Durkin, who's going to make the bigger adjustments here? We know that Tennessee didn't have the type of game that it normally has offensively when it played I guess its most athletic team to date on their schedule, Florida. That's another thing that we have to consider here when we look at these numbers. Okay. This is a step up and a different deal for Tennessee than it has been throughout the season. These are different caliber of athletes across the front and across not only the secondary, even though the secondaries have problems for Texas A&M, but at the linebacker level, than for Virginia, Austin Peay, even Florida, UTSA, and South Carolina. You have Texas A&M, like I said, Edgerrin Cooper is playing about as good as any player in the country right now. 3 sacks in that Alabama game on Jalen Milroe, 2 coming in the first half. But the problem, guys, for Texas A&M is even with that type of athleticism, okay, if they're not getting home at a fast enough rate and they're not making sure that they create that havoc early, I think Joe Milton's going to have opportunities down the field with a healthy Donta Thornton coming back. I mean, what a weapon when you've got a guy who can run like that. He's going to be coming back. I know they lost Brew McCoy, but now it's going to be more, I think with Brew McCoy out, this passing attack for Tennessee is just way more speed oriented and laden. You know, it's not like Brew McCoy wasn't slow by any means, but he's more of a chain mover, a tough guy, going to get yards after the catch, things of that nature. Now you've got Ramel Keaton, Squirrel White, Donta Thornton that are just going to be, I mean, these guys can sprint. They can go down the field, and Joe Milton obviously has the arm that they won't be able to outrun him. So I think that if you're Tennessee and you're Josh Heupel and you see these numbers, I'm going to throw them up again. The stuff rate. Stuff rate means the percentage of time that you stop your opponent at or behind the line of scrimmage, particularly in the run game. Both of these teams are very, very salty against the run. And I think Josh Heupel and company, they typically want to get you going with hitting you with that run game. Okay. And when I say get you going, they want to get you on your heels. They want to hit you with that run game, run Jalen Wright, run Jabari Small, attack. And then once you start bringing hats to the box or you get disoriented because of the tempo that they're doing, then that's when the shots come down the field. I think it's going to have to be the opposite in this game when you're talking about Tennessee. I think they're going to have to take shots early and maybe even, connect on a couple of those shots early in order to find a way to maybe loosen up that Texas A&M defensive front. Because I think that Walter Nolan, Shamar Turner, Shamar Stewart, Fadil Diggs, Edgerrin Cooper, Tyron York. I mean, so many guys in that front seven that are playing at a high level. You realize this, Alabama had 26 yards rushing for the entire day against Texas A&M. Okay. At halftime, Alabama had negative 13 yards rushing. That's including sacks as well. I know Joe Milton's mobile. He's not Jalen Milroe, okay, in terms of his ability to run. So if you try to come out with the run early and it gets stuffed and you're in 3rd and long and you allow opportunities for Texas A&M and DJ Durkin to heat up Joe Milton and to come, just ears pinned back and being able to know, hey, it's a passing situation. We're going to get to come after him right here. I think that is a recipe for trouble, and I don't think that's what they want to do. Now, conversely, let's talk about Tennessee's defense, okay? I don't care if it's James Pierce, Tyler Barron, whoever across the front of this Tennessee defense. I like the Tennessee defensive line coming into this game a lot more than I do the Texas A&M offensive line. Now, I thought the same thing going into the Florida game. I thought that Tennessee would go into Florida and would continue to create negative plays because that's what they do. They go in there, they disrupt people, things of that nature. That did not come to fruition I think Florida has a very physical offensive front and one that goes, underrated at times, even though they didn't look that physical on the road against Kentucky and Utah. They sure did at home against Tennessee. So my question is, has this Tennessee defensive front been tested enough to know, okay, are some of these numbers that we're seeing, are they fool's gold, or are they really a tough unit that Texas A&M is going to struggle with, whether it's Chase Besantis or Trey Zune, Layden Robinson, Bryce Foster, all at different times being attacked by that Alabama defensive front. There were some struggles. They gave up 3 sacks of their own. Max Johnson was continually under pressure, so you would have to think that Tim Banks and the defensive staff over there for Tennessee have to see that and say, hey, we can get after them in this way. Now, Tennessee, when you're talking about bringing pressure, like I said, James Pierce leads with 5 sacks. Tyler Barron has 4 right behind him. And then you've got guys like Aaron Beasley, who've been around forever, Omar Norman Lott. These are guys who create a lot of pressure on the quarterback. But Aaron Beasley, kind of the most complete player. He's got 2 sacks and then also 8.5 tackles for a loss, just a leader on this defense for Tennessee. Him and Tyler Barron. And then I think that wild card is kind of James Pierce, as he's really developing a role as a pass rusher for Tennessee over there, especially on key downs. They get Max Johnson in a obvious passing situation. You can guarantee you're going to see James Pierce on the field coming after him. Okay. We talked about, Tennessee can't afford just to, get stymied on the run early and then put Joe Milton in a lot of obvious passing situations. Same thing for Max Johnson, but I think they need to go about it differently. I do not think that Texas A&M is going to have success running the football against Tennessee, period. I don't think you can say, hey, Moss and Daniels, you're going to go in there and you're going to, rush for 175 to 200 yards and help this offense really click along and stay ahead of the chains and all that kind of stuff. No. What I think they have to do is they have to find extensions of the run game and try to get the ball quickly in the hands of Aniyah Smith and Evan Stewart in space. Those two only touched the ball offensively. I'm not counting punt return for Aniyah Smith. Offensively, those two only had 7 touches against Alabama. That is absolute malpractice if you're Jimbo Fisher. That was the other thing I was going to say from earlier. He's got to not coach conservative. And the second thing is he's got to get the ball to his playmakers, allow Bobby Petrino to distribute that ball quickly, get it out of Max Johnson's hands, because Tennessee is going to get pressure against that offensive line for Texas A&M. So, guys, I'm just intrigued by this matchup here. I think it's a great one. I want to see if, Tennessee coming off a bye week, how much has that staff been able to, cook up a game plan that's really going to exploit some deficiencies on the back end of Texas A&M's defense early, where they take their shots early and then come in with the run game, maybe change a little bit of how they normally go about things. And then Texas A&M, what are the adjustments on the back end? And what are also the adjustments that you're going to make in terms of Jimbo Fisher there? You see him in terms of, are you going to coach this game scared? Okay. Or are you going to coach this game, with nothing to lose, kind of go after this and say, hey, our backs are up against the wall. We've got to go out and be aggressive. I think that's a big deal, and get Evan Stewart and Aniyah Smith the football. Got to get them the football. When you're talking about these two teams, Tennessee and Texas A&M both have their back against the wall. Both of them have one SEC loss and are still technically in it in terms of their division and the opportunities in front of them. Texas A&M doesn't control its destiny anymore. It would need some help from somebody beating Alabama, and then kind of some chaos. They would need to win out. And Tennessee, they control their destiny right now. They went out. They beat Georgia. They'll be in the SEC championship game, and we'll talk more tomorrow about that coming forward. Is Tennessee the only team in the country that can legitimately stop Georgia's run at a three-peat? We'll talk about that tomorrow. Now, another matchup that I am super intrigued about is Florida at South Carolina. And when you talk about these two teams, you're talking about programs that at different times have been, throughout, definitely from 2007 to 2013, 14. I mean, that was a totally different time for these two programs. Some great success for each of them. Through the Tim Tebow years for Florida, the Connor Shaw years for South Carolina. Well, now times are a little bit leaner for both programs. And you know what? When you're up at a press conference at week 6 in the season, and it's year 2 for Billy Napier, and it's year 3 for Shane Beamer, and you're answering questions like, what do you think the state of the program is right now and how things are going in that nature? I can tell you right now that the people asking that question, they don't think the state of the program is good. All right. And if the media is asking questions, it's largely because the fan base is starting to grumble and things of that nature. People can say all they want to that Shane Beamer's nowhere near a hot seat or anything like that. He's got a worse record at this point than Will Muschamp had. People are going to say that, oh, well, Will Muschamp didn't leave the program in a good spot, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. You are in an opportunity now where you are judged by a different standard, because look what Deion Sanders and Colorado have done turning over that roster. Look what other programs have done retooling quickly. I mean, heck, Brian Kelly took LSU from being an embarrassment the year before he got there to the SEC West championship, okay, and to the SEC championship game. This is not an era where you got to have, and Shane Beamer said it himself, this is not an era where you get a 5-6 year rebuilding plan. There's an expectation to win football games. And right now he's 17-14. Billy Napier's 9-9 in his run in Florida. This is a vital game for the success and the future of these two programs. You're talking about a South Carolina team that had, just like Tennessee did, the benefit of a bye week to get ready for an SEC opponent. Okay. And how will they create some kind of offensive success and rhythm outside of Spencer Rattler, chucking it to Xavier Legette every play, or outside of, Spencer Rattler just putting the whole team on his back? Can they find ways, whether it's, they haven't ran the football tremendously well, but Mario Anderson has had some flashes of being a good solution there for him at running back. They should be getting some guys healthier on the offensive line. Ja'Kai Moore, Kason Henry, both trending in the right direction to play. So if that's the case, guys need to see that come to fruition, and they need to not only just with Mario Anderson, but get some guys quick on the perimeter, be able to play in space, use the atmosphere that's going to be there of Williams-Brice Stadium, because you can really feed off that home momentum, and just got to try to create ways to get players in space over there. As Florida, they didn't tackle well in that Kentucky game, and I know it's a little bit different when you're talking about Ray Davis and the power run, but there were also some times where Devin Leary was able to shoot the ball out quick to a couple of those receivers, and they were able to get a little bit of yardage over there. And they also they lost some guys. The Florida secondary did in the red zone, some busted coverages on that. So in the red area, how successful is South Carolina going to be? But my point is with this, you've had an entire bye week to develop this plan. Okay. And to win a game that is a must win if you're looking to get to a bowl game this year, in my opinion, for South Carolina. They got to win this game. Billy Napier, you have to prove that you can win a road game in the SEC in a deal where, right now you're not favored. Okay. South Carolina is a slight favorite at home. This thing is -2 in favor of South Carolina. So really, odds makers probably view Florida as the better team, the more complete team, because you get a 3-point advantage typically for home field. So on a neutral field, they'd probably have Florida being a 1-point favorite. All right. Kinsley Aguakon should play in this one. Eugene Wilson should play in this one. The guys that have been banged up, Trevor Etienne, should be able to play in this one. So it ought to be full strength on the road, going there as a team. And that run game has not traveled with Florida on the road. What does Billy Napier do? I mean, it's been so bad on the road that the media is asking questions. Hey, how are you changing up your schedule? Things of this and that in terms of your travel and all this kind of stuff. They said, yeah, we're going to travel earlier. We're going to arrive at the stadium earlier, change up a different thing. So they are searching for answers in any way that they can to improve their performance on the road. 31 rushing yards against Utah earlier this year on the road between Etienne and Montrell Johnson, and then you're talking about 69 yards total rushing against Kentucky at Kentucky a couple of weeks ago. Also, Graham Mertz needs to show that he can play in a hostile environment and not have some key mistakes, okay? Because against Utah, there was a time where he turned the ball over, and then against Kentucky, it was wide open receivers that missed opportunities early on and allowed Kentucky to get that momentum going. You allow those towels and that sandstorm to get going in Williams-Brice Stadium, and that place is a momentum juggernaut, and it will get going in South Carolina. Can do to you what they did against Tennessee last year and just hang up a lot of points because they've got it rolling. The defense, when their defense is out there, it'll be loud. It'll be tough for you to communicate. So Graham Mertz has to be not only efficient early, but I think you need to see Florida hit an explosive early in this play. Find a way, whether it's Ricky Pearsall, whether it's Eugene Wilson, one of these guys, find a way to hit them down the field. And get a big opportunity for that passing game of Florida. And then that will also help you tremendously because if they've got Nick Emenwari or one of those safeties for South Carolina rolled down in the box saying, hey, you're not going to run it with Trevor Etienne and Montrell Johnson because we're really not scared of your threats on the back end, then it could be a long night for the Gators. Got to loosen them up early, got to take your shots. So two teams of Florida on the road, Tennessee at home that I think have to take their shots. And then if you are South Carolina there, you got to show me that you can, as a staff, that you can find a way with what you got because there's no sense in poor mouthing on what you don't have, okay? You had opportunities like everybody else to go out and fortify the offensive line in the offseason in terms of getting some better transfers in, things of that nature. I know they're recruiting well, all this kind of stuff, but don't blame anybody else for the roster. Don't blame anybody else for where the state of the program is right now. You got what you got, okay? Can you make it good enough to win a game that you're favored in at home coming off a bye week? And I think if not, whoever performs, unless this game is just an instant classic, I think whoever performs poorly in this one, whether it's Florida or South Carolina, I think either Napier or Beamer are definitely going to start feeling the heat and start feeling the pressure. I'm not saying they're going to get fired, but people are going to start saying, okay, the clock has started. The clock has started ticking on. There better be some results soon, or it's going to start getting a little hot around the collar for both of these guys. So I appreciate everybody tuning in. I'm looking forward to those two matchups there. Tomorrow, we'll talk a lot about Missouri and Kentucky, and then also LSU and Auburn. Also a Tennessee, question of are they the biggest threat to Georgia, and are they really the only opportunity to stop the three-peat because of the circumstances of that matchup? We'll get into all of that tomorrow. Tonight, I've got a show with Tavares King, No Sean Marino, live here on the channel, and you can call in. So make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications right here on Southeastern 14, and you can be a part of our call-in show tonight with two former SEC and NFL players in Tavares King and No Sean Marino as we talk about the week that was last week and the week that's coming up ahead. So appreciate you guys tuning in. I am Blayne Gilmer. Make sure you contact caroline.smith@southeastern14.com if you'd like to partner with us here at Southeastern 14. And then also, guys, check out CHOMPS in the description below to get 15% off. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Blayne Gilmer. We'll catch you next time for more SEC football coverage right here on your place for daily SEC sports coverage, Southeastern 14.